With Rhys Hoskins now a member of the Milwaukee Brewers, will there be another move? Will they fix third base? Our guest today, longtime friend, co-host, and comrade, Doug Russell joins us. All that coming up here on this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Something else on the agenda for the Milwaukee Brewers. Predicted to finish in fourth place right now. I saw a power rating where they're 21st in Bleacher Report, all that ahead. With our guest today, as I mentioned, Doug Russell will join us coming up here in a little bit. Sports Director of Iheartmedia. My name is Chuck Freeman from Locked On Brewers, been a longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, where you'll find all our episodes here of Locked On Brewers. We are with you every day, and there is coworker, longtime compadre friend, and he's been in the media for a long, long time as well. Doug Russell joining us. Hey, Doug.
Hi, Chuck. I'm looking behind you at the office set, the studio set that you've got going on. There's a lot going on back there. You got some credentials back there. You've got a lot of game programs. I see some NLDS or NLCS stuff back there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, what is that? The Milwaukee Sentinel when they won the pennant.
That one right there, that is the paper that was distributed in Seattle for the Pilots' first game, who later became the Milwaukee Brewers.
Of course, at Six Stadium.
It says Seattle goes big league.
Okay.
Not for long. And then, of course, that was up there. That's when the Brewers in 1982, when we were all in high school or junior high, won the ALCS. Last time they went to the World Series.
Yeah, I was 9.
I was 14.
Yeah,
14.
So
13.
We've just told everybody exactly how old we are.
Russ, good to have you aboard. Sports Director at iHeartRadio. I know you're a big baseball fan. I know, because I wanted to get you on. Because you always tell me opening day is your Christmas, and it is not too far. I don't have the exact date, but it's not too far away.
No, it's not. And I like the fact that, when the calendar turns, I don't know when this will air, but as we tape this on January 31st, when the calendar turns to February 1st, you can say the pitchers and catchers report later this month.
Yeah.
And you can say that opening day is next month as well. So it's coming. The snow is starting to melt finally. And it's coming, and I can't wait. There's still some enthusiasm from last year when they surprised everyone, but there's also a lot of new faces, and the manager now is managing somewhere else in Chicago of all places, which I wouldn't have had on my bingo card, but here we are.
Have the Brewers gotten better or worse since we last left off with them in October?
Well, I think they got better at first base, right? I think that they got better. It looks like Jackson Chourio is ready for prime time. They signed him to the extension for a reason. And I think that everything that he has shown, everything that we've seen from him, makes me believe that he's going to be a legitimate Major League Baseball center fielder, hopefully sooner rather than later. There's a lot of optimism surrounding him, not only in Milwaukee, but throughout all of Major League Baseball, which I think is right. They've got 4 prospects in the top 100. That's never happened before. Jacob Mizorowski, I think, is going to have, if he stays healthy, a great Major League career as a pitcher. Jefferson Cuero, the young catcher. Hopefully he's ready for prime time. I don't know if he'll be ready this year, but there's optimism not only for 2024, but I also think for 2025 and beyond. And every time I count the Brewers out, they surprise me. So, do I ever pick them to win the National League pennant? No, but they came a lot closer last year than a lot of people, myself included, thought they were going to.
Bleacher Report, despite the Hoskins acquisition, saw them in these power rankings, take them for what they're worth. I saw, other places with a 4th. Yeah, I get that, but 21st. Are they the 21st best team in baseball right now?
I think they're better than that. I do. I mean, Corbin Burns is back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Devin Williams is back, right?
Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I still think that they've got a good rotation. Not having Brandon Woodruff anymore, that hurts.
Yeah.
But, can Wade Miley at, Methuselah of the rotation Can he reclaim some of the magic that he seems to have in Milwaukee? He's an important part of the rotation. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they're markedly worse than they were at the end of last year. I think they surprised a lot of people at the end of last year, but also with the way that they won the division, but then bowed out in the postseason. I think they disappointed a lot of people too. And that's okay, because that just raises the bar and raises expectations for this upcoming season. And when you have raised expectations, you also have raised enthusiasm. And that's always a good thing.
Off season was kind of like, not much going on. But then they signed Rhys Hoskins. Did they almost have to make that move?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. You had a gaping hole at first base. I still think you have a hole at third base. But you had to get some power at the corner infield positions. And I think they've addressed that. And Hoskins, he met the media. I was on the conference call that he was on earlier in the week. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm ready to go. I don't think I'll have any lingering effects from the torn ACL. It's not like he's at a speed position in the field. He's over at first base, but he's somebody who hits well at American Family Field. He's someone who hits a lot of home runs. He's a power bat that the Brewers have to have in that order, not only to, produce himself, but also to offer a little bit of protection to Christian Yelich, who, by the way, had a huge bounce back season last year, which they needed him to have last year. So again, if everything trends the way that it trended in the second half of the 2023 season, I think the Brewers are going to contend. And you look at the rest of the division, I think it's a relatively weak division.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps the Brewers too. So you always worry about, teams like the Braves and teams like the Dodgers, as well you should when the playoffs roll around. But let's just get there first and see what happens. And, they've got a lot of postseason failures over the last several years, but they're always there. They're always right there. And when you have this pitching staff, good things can happen. They just haven't, unfortunately, when October rolls around.
I can see Rhys hitting 35 dingers.
Of course. Absolutely. He's done it because we've seen it.
Yeah.
Did it in Philadelphia. He's a 30-plus home run guy. He averages, I think, 34 home runs per 162 games over the course of his career. So you put him in a place where he's had enormous success. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he could be a 35 home run a year type of player while he's in Milwaukee. I think he's 31 years old. So he's not past his prime. I think he's probably at the second
prime
half of what his prime.
Power. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mid-30s.
if you can hit
20s,
30 plus home runs, I mean, that's already a grand slam, no pun intended, for Matt Arnold and his staff.
I think he looks at this, Rhys Hoskins. Yeah, they could contend in Milwaukee, and he said all those things in that conference call the other day. But I think he looks at it, well, with the 1 year opt, he has a monster year. He's going to opt out, and then he's going to hit a payday coming off that injury.
So what? That's
what
fine.
I say. That's what I say.
Worry about that at the end of 2024.
Yeah, I don't care about the opt-out.
Right. And you have to play for now. When you're the Milwaukee Brewers, that's your lot in life, right? Yeah. You can't play the long game with any of these guys. You can't play the long game with Burns. You can't play the long game, even with a guy like Freddie Peralta, who they have locked up for a couple more years. You can't play the long game with him. The only guy that they tried to play the long game with Yelich. It didn't work out for a couple of years. He bounced back last season, but you need that to continue for Christian as well. So don't worry about 2025.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Because you can't. You've had Jackson Churio moving forward for the next 8 seasons. That's great. But every other player around Jackson Churio, and to a certain extent Christian Yelich, because of the length of his contract, it's going to be piecemeal year after year. That's the way that the economics of Major League Baseball is set up. That's what it kind of dictates for the Brewers.
What was disappointing about that phone call the other day, that conference call with Matt Arnold, the Brewers general manager, on there, when he says, we are lucky to have a player. Now I'm like, is he saying that lucky because we're the Milwaukee Brewers? We can't have nice things. We have to get a guy coming off an injury, or what? How did you take that?
Probably the way that he intended it. I think that.
Yeah, that's why I heard him right.
I think the Brewers are probably fortunate to have a player like a Rhys Hoskins to have in their lineup, honestly, because there are a lot of places that he could probably go. And I don't know if he was going to make more money because, he's coming off the injury, but certainly they wanted to keep him in Philadelphia, but I don't know if he fit into their budget. So the Brewers had a little bit of money to play with, not a whole lot of money. They never do have a whole lot of money to play with, but they had a little bit. So they went out and they addressed an area of need, and they had a gaping need at first base. And hopefully Rhys Hoskins is healthy and can do what he did the last several years when he was wearing a Phillies uniform. Came up with some huge home runs too, some postseason home runs too.
He did. Absolutely. He was beloved in Philly. And you talked about that on the conference call as well. Hang on, Russ. Got to get to a commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about, can the pitching do it again? We'll see what Russ thinks about his starting lineup and who's going to DH starting lineup in the outfield and who will DH for the Brewers. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here. Locked On Brewers. Coming up, we're going to talk about eBay Motors. eBay Motors. Drive, passion, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And you also get it at eBay Motors. They do so much. And I told you all a while that I'm a big eBay guy. I love eBay. And right now, with over 122 million parts on your number one ride, you'll also always find exactly what you need with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring it home when you can with a win. Keep your ride and die alive with ebaymotors.com. Again, anything you want on there, level it up, peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, anything. Whether you're in the speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. ebaymotors.com. Chuck Freeman, Doug Russell, our guest here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. We are here for you every day now. Now that we're getting into February, we will be here daily. Try to be at least talking Brewers baseball with you. We're coming right back after this timeout. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, Doug Russell joining us, Sports Director, Iheartmedia, former co-host with me and Mike Wickett over at the old WSSP radio, as it was.
It rested the most piece.
Yes. Still alive, but a shell of a shell of a shell of it once was.
Yeah, if you want to listen to national radio, knock yourself out.
Yeah, no kidding.
But instead, you're Locked On Brewers.
Yeah, we're Locked On Brewers.
This is your team.
Who is your outfielder right now going in? Who's going to be the guy sitting on the bench as a DH coming off in that role opening day?
I think, listen, I know that he won a Gold Glove, but it feels like it was 100 years ago because it was with the Marlins. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world by a long shot, so I'm kind of looking at Christian Yelich as my DH, which means that I've got Frelick, I've got Chourio in center, and Garrett Mitchell in left. That's what I've got.
Okay. DH?
So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, DH. Yeah. Christian Yelich.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder how that's going to go over with Christian, because I think that's the route they're going to go. Because I saw somebody put out there a projected lineup. Might have been Dominic who said that he had Chourio as the DH on opening day, and I was like, wow, I don't know if they DH him right away. I think they'd put him right in the outfield.
I think they're paying him to be an outfielder. I mean, if they're gonna DH somebody, I mean, maybe Frelick, I don't know, but he came up with some huge plays in the outfield last year. Yeah. So Garrett Mitchell's he's just an electric player, and you hope that he's healthy. I mean, I know he had the freak injury at the beginning of last season, but I think a lot of Brewers fans maybe forgot about Garrett Mitchell, and you shouldn't, because I think he's a player who is an exciting player, certainly, but also someone who I think is only going to get better. And the injury was unfortunate, but is he a possibility for designated hitter too? Probably. It's always a good problem to have. That's what Craig Counsell always used to say. It's a good problem to have when you've got too many outfielders who are legitimate major league outfielders. Yeah. So it is what it is. But if I'm penciling in, if I'm Pat Murphy, I'm saying, you know what, Yelly, I think you're probably best suited for that role.
You mentioned earlier about Yelich having a bounce back season. Is it because the standards for us have dipped a little bit?
Well, I mean, they have, certainly. I mean, he's not, I don't think anybody expects him to hit 330 and, win a batting title and hit 40 home runs and vie for a triple crown and, potentially be an MVP like he was in 2018 or, could have been an MVP in 2019. I think those days are probably over, and that's a shame, because you had thought that, he could be a generational star, and that's what the Brewers were thinking when they signed him to a long-term contract. And then through a variety, he had the injury where he shattered his kneecap. The 2020 season was a lost season. He was bad in 2021, not much better in 2022. And you're kind of looking at him and say, can you just get back to where you were with the Marlins? And that's kind of what he did. He got back to where he was with the Marlins. And he was a pretty darn good player when he was with the Miami Marlins. So it was a bounce back season. Our bar for him has certainly gone down. But, it goes down for just about everybody. Cody Bellinger has a very similar trajectory as Christian Yelich. Spectacular 2018, was the MVP in 2019, completely falls off the table for a few years, and then had a bounce back season last year. But again, nobody was expecting him to become an MVP candidate or anything like that. Sure. So those days are probably over. Ryan Braun won the 2011 NL MVP, had a couple of good seasons after that, but he was never the same player after that as well. I mean, he had a good 2012 season, but the sharp drop off can be daunting and confusing for not only players but fans as well. I still think Christian has some good baseball left in him. I still think he's a good hitter. I just don't think he's a Triple Crown candidate anymore.
If this was the NFL, we're playing by those financial rules right there. Would they be asking Christian to restructure or maybe cut him?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's an apples and oranges kind of argument, because they could do a lot of different things. I mean, if the NFL structure financially was in place in Major League Baseball, you wouldn't have a lot of the issues that the Brewers have. You'd be able to go out and sign, Corbin Burns to a max contract, for example, or you'd be able to, compete in free agency. Milwaukee's a great city, and especially in the summertime, and a lot of athletes don't realize that until they get here and spend some time here. But it's a great place to raise your family. The fans are so passionate. 3 million fans coming to American Family Field, or about 3 million fans coming to American Family Field every single year. That's absurd in cities the size of Milwaukee.
Sure.
So you've got a built-in incredible fan base, a knowledgeable fan base. You've got some history here. You'd like to have some more history here. Of course, I get it. But, it's hard to say, because I think that you'd have some other factors that wouldn't make his contract as daunting as it looked like, just 365 days ago.
Hoskins kind of talked about this on the other day when he was on that conference call. He called it Milwaukee a sleepy town. He said, I think a lot of people don't realize what Milwaukee has.
Sure.
And players, I mentioned this on my podcast the other day, Russ, a lot of players will come here and then they'll say, hey, this is not such a bad place. And, we
surprise!
grew up here, but yeah, exactly. People want to downplay this and think we're 20 below zero 10 months a year.
Well, sometimes you get a bad rap, and it's hard to, and it's hard to shake that, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I don't worry about national perception too much, except when it comes to, athletes making excuses as to why they don't want to come here. I mean, you talk about even a guy like Damian Lillard, who I think had his sights set on when he was leaving Portland to go to Miami, right? And then he comes to Milwaukee, and, Milwaukee and Portland aren't that different. And it's not like he spent his entire career making a name for himself with the Lakers or with the Heat or with the Golden State Warriors. He spent the first 11 seasons of his career in Portland, Oregon, which, it's a nice city, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that it has the best reputation around the country either. So once you get to a place and you make it home and you embrace it for what it is, you can thrive. And if you come to Milwaukee and you are a champion, you will be beloved for the rest of your life.
Oh, sure.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
That's just the way that it goes. And there's something to that. Not every city is like that, but Milwaukee and Wisconsin as a state for our sports stars, that's a pretty special place. It's a pretty good situation.
You touched on it earlier about Burns and maybe the rotation. You satisfied with the rotation the way it is going into camp right now?
Kind of have to be, right? I mean, I think you've got a good 1-2 punch in Burns and Peralta. I mentioned Wade Miley. Anything that you can get out of him is great. You want Aaron Ashby to return to health, and looks like your number 5 starters, probably Colin Ray, who had some good moments last season. I think they're not maybe as strong as they were 1 through 5 a year ago, but like I said, the loss of Brandon Woodruff is going to loom large. And I know nobody's feeling that more than Brandon himself, because he loved this city. He loved playing here, and you just hope that he can get his career back on track, whether it's in Milwaukee or anywhere else. But mean, it's a pretty significant injury that he suffered. So am I satisfied with it? I mean, you hope that they can score enough runs to give Corbin Burns enough run support, which has been an issue over the years. But after that, I mean, I think they've got a good 1-2. I think they've got a decent 1-2-3. I have questions at 4 and 5, but most teams do as well.
Russ, hang on. One more commercial break here. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Super Bowl is coming up here in about a week and a half. Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat in the house, grabbing your favorite snacks, and placing some super bets, prop bets. They have all the prop bets on there on FanDuel. Anything you want. And I was telling you, I think McCaffrey scoring the first touchdown, that would be my way to go. Not only get bet to win the Super Bowl, but FanDuel's got bets for players who score, which players can score a touchdown, points scored, all that. They have hundreds of props. So just not the W, but anything else you want on FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book because they have offers like this right here. $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more hits. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON to sign up. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NFL. And of course, you got college basketball going on right now. Baseball is going to be starting up real soon as well, as we can't wait. But hey, get down on Super Bowl coming up. Super Bowl bets, whatever you like, all the props. You all like the coin flip, all that is right there. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Doug Russell is our guest. We'll be right back with him after this to finish up. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, Doug Russell, Sports Director of WIBA 97.3 and Iheartmedia family down there in Milwaukee and Madison. Russ, you did work with Bob Uecker. Just turned 90. You worked at the same station, same network with him.
Sure.
Any memories? Not memories of Ueck, but I mean, memories, I suppose, in a good way when you guys worked together.
Sure. I've got, I think everybody who's ever worked with Bob has memories that you don't really want to repeat out of respect for Bob. I've got a few of those. Yeah. As do most, one of these days we'll, there'll be a tell-all book about Bob, but it's all in good nature. It's all in fun and everything. It was a big day for me as a young broadcaster. There's certain graduation moments when you begin this business. And for me, when I graduated from Buddy, because that's what Bob will call you if he doesn't know you. Yeah. Hey, buddy. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, pal.
Pal's another one. When I graduated to Doogie. Hey, Doogie. Oh.
Yeah.
Bob Uecker knows who I am. He knows my name.
Chaz. With me, he calls me Chaz.
Chaz? Okay.
Yeah. And then he got that from Pat Hughes.
Oh, okay.
Now that's going back a long time. But Pat invented Pat Hughes, and then Uecker. Hey, Chazzy.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, as long as we're talking
you're right. You're exactly right. He's got a nickname for you, and you're not pal.
No, if you graduate, if you're not pal anymore or buddy, then it's like, oh, that's a big one. So Bob, like you said, Bob just turned 90. One of his former partners, as long as we're talking about the radio broadcast, one of his former partners is kind of out on the street right now. Did you hear about Jim Powell? Jim Powell.
What? With the Twins?
No, Braves.
Or Braves, yes, Braves.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's what happened there?
He's not there anymore. Apparently, now I'm just kind of going off of what I've heard and what Jim posted. He's posted it on Twitter, X, whichever you prefer. He's called his last Braves game, so he is a free agent.
This late in the winter?
Yeah.
As far as that is concerned?
And apparently, I was talking with my colleague and you know him well as well, who's been around the Brewers forever, Drew Olson. And he was saying, it's kind of felt like the Braves have been pushing Jim out a little bit more over the last several years. And Jim's now available. And can we start the petition to bring Jim Powell back? That's what I want to do. If Jim Powell is available, let's bring Jim back, because we all love Bob. I love Bob. You love Bob. Milwaukee loves Bob. Wisconsin loves Bob. Baseball loves Bob. But Bob is 90. And at some point, the page is going to be turned full time. And I can't think of anyone in the world who would be better suited to take over for Bob than someone who has as much history with the Brewers and it was as much history as Bob, and somebody who's got a long runway in front of him is Jim Powell.
Although that broadcast booth is quite crowded right now.
It is. I agree. But
with backups and everybody.
You've got backups upon backups.
Mm-hmm.
You've got job shares, basically, is what it boils down to. So I've got to think that with all of the broadcasters that this team already employs, what's one more?
What do you have? Each guy do 30 games?
I don't care. If it's 30 games, that's 30 more games of Jim Powell and calling Milwaukee Brewers baseball, and that's 30 more games that the broadcasts are going to sound that just so spectacular.
He is certainly, Euchre, the most youthful 90-year-old guy you're ever going to come across. Obviously, he's not making road trips, but how much, honestly, I think I get that question as well, Russ. You do too.
Yeah,
how much longer is Euchre really want to do this? Now he says he'll only do it as long as the club will have him.
Yeah.
But how much does he honestly? Because I feel like he's one of these guys, and I think there's people out there like that, boy, you take the Brewers away from him, and wow.
I have to think that at some point sooner rather than later, he's going to transition into some different kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's calling play-by-play. I don't know if it's, the storyteller emeritus. I don't know, but he's 90 years old. I can't think when did Vince Scully retire? I don't know if he was 90 yet when he called his last game. So yeah. I don't know that there have been a lot of 90-year-olds that have called play-by-play in the history of Major League Baseball. It's not, I'm not wishing, you wish he could live forever. You wish that we all could live forever. Yeah. You wish that, his calls will live forever. So that's the legacy that he has. When you think of summers in Wisconsin, you think of Bob Euchre calling baseball games on the radio. That's never, ever, ever going to go away. But at some point, probably within the next year or two, that's going to be it for Bob in the booth, because, I don't want to be working when I'm 90. And as much as I love this, I don't want to be working when I'm 90. So I would think
getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like we've had to do for most of our career.
Sure. Wouldn't do that. Can't do that. Won't do that. Those days, that's a hard life, but, but for Bob, how much longer he's going to do it, I don't have any insight, but I would guess that every game that he calls, cherish, because you never know when the last one's going to be the last one.
Follow him on Twitter or X, Doug Russell. Just like it says, Doug Russell. 2 S's,
2 L's, an RU and an E, but not in that order.
Sports director, longtime friend, iHeartRadio. Russ, thanks for taking some time. Let's maybe catch up in March again. How about that?
Absolutely. Anytime, Chuck. I'm here for you. I love doing this. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Doug Russell joining us, our great guest, former tag team partner as well. This is Chuck Freeman. Thanks a lot, everybody, for following us along here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. So long, everybody.